I want to be clear about something before I begin because everyone I've tried to tell this to has gotten it wrong. They hear, I kissed a stranger, and immediately close their minds to everything else. My sister said I destroyed my marriage over nothing. My husband says he'll never forgive me, that I'm dead to him. But here's what nobody understands, that kiss was the least of what I did that night, and the truth is so much worse than anyone imagines. I'm going to tell you everything, including the part about the private messages, and how it all started with a throwaway comment on a forum 18 months ago. That's really where this begins. 2 kids under 6 will strip away every piece of you that you thought was permanent. My identity became the color of their sippy cups, the texture of their oatmeal, the specific way they liked their socks pulled up. Mark worked 60-hour weeks at the firm, and I understood. Someone had to pay the mortgage on our townhouse in the suburbs. But between the sleep deprivation and the breastfeeding and the postpartum depression that hung around like a houseguest who wouldn't take the hint, I disappeared. Not metaphorically. I mean, I would look in the bathroom mirror while the kids napped and fail to recognize the woman staring back, her eyes hollow, her touch lingering on her collarbone as if checking whether she was still substantial. The bedroom died slowly, not all at once. First it was the exhaustion. Then it was the way Mark stopped looking at me when I undressed, his eyes fixed on his phone instead. By the time our youngest turned 2, we'd gone 4 months without touching. I did the math one Tuesday while folding miniature dinosaur t-shirts. 4 months, 122 days. I'd read enough articles to know this was the danger zone, the place where marriages went to die quietly in their sleep. I bought the lingerie. I suggested date nights. I even tried the recommended conversations, the ones that start with I feel instead of you never. Mark would listen, nod, promise to try harder. Then he'd fall asleep on the couch at 9:15, remote still clutched in his hand. 3 small things happened in March. First, I noticed Mark started taking his phone into the bathroom, which he'd never done before. Second, I began taking 2-hour lunches at work, not because I was eating, but because I was sitting in my car scrolling through anonymous forums, reading about other people's broken marriages like they were a mirror I was afraid to admit was mine. Third, and this seemed innocent at the time, I created a username, LoneLimum35. The anonymity felt like armor. I posted in our dead bedrooms about my situation, about the 18-month drought, about feeling like a ghost haunting my own marriage. The responses came immediately. You're not alone. This is so common. Have you considered he's cheating? The validation felt like oxygen after being underwater. Sarah invited me for drinks on a Thursday. Just us girls, she said. You need to remember you're a person, not just a mom. I almost said no. The routine comforted me, the predictability of bath time at 7, story time at 7:30, the few precious hours of silence before I fell asleep beside a man who felt like a stranger. But I said yes. I wore the jeans that still fit, the ones I kept in the back of my closet like a promise to a former version of myself. I put on mascara. I told Mark I'd be home by 11. He barely looked up from his laptop. Have fun, he said, his tone suggesting I'd be doing him a favor by removing myself from the house. The bar was loud. Sarah ordered tequila shots. I haven't done shots since college, but the first one burned clean, stripped away the hesitation. The second made me feel 22 again, before marriage and children and the slow erosion of being seen. By the third, I wasn't thinking about the daycare pickup schedule or whether Mark had remembered to start the dishwasher. I was thinking about the man at the end of the bar who'd been watching me since I walked in. He looked to be around my age, maybe younger. Dark hair. A dimple in his left cheek that appeared every time he caught my eye and smiled. I knew what Sarah would say. It's just harmless flirting. You're just having fun. You're allowed to feel desired. I excused myself to the bathroom, and when I came back, he was standing near our table, talking to Sarah like they were old friends. This is Jake, Sarah said, her voice carefully neutral. He says you two went to college together. The lie was so smooth it took me a moment to catch up. I didn't recognize him, not even a flicker, but I smiled anyway, playing along. Small world, I said. Jake's eyes held mine too long. He touched my elbow when he laughed. The tequila made everything feel inevitable instead of chosen. Sarah pulled me aside at 10:30. You're playing with fire, she hissed. Mark's my cousin, I can't watch you do this. I yanked my arm away, the tequila turning my voice sharp. I'm just dancing, I'm allowed to dance. She looked at me with something that might have been pity or disgust. It's not just the dancing, she said. I saw you give him your number. And Rebecca, this is worse than the messages. My real name in her mouth felt like a slap. I hadn't heard it spoken aloud in months. Everyone calls me Becca or Mom or Honey, but my full name, the one my mother used when I was in deep trouble, carried a weight that sobered me slightly. What messages? I asked, my voice smaller now. Sarah shook her head. Don't lie to me, I saw your phone. You've been posting things, private things, about you and Mark. The room tilted, not from the alcohol. From the realization that my carefully constructed compartments were collapsing into each other. I told Jake I needed fresh air. He followed me outside. The parking lot smelled like rain and cigarettes. You look exactly like your pictures, he said, and for a terrible moment I thought he meant my Facebook photos, the curated ones where I still looked like a woman who had her life together. Then he said, the ones from the forum, the verification posts. My stomach dropped through the pavement. Verification posts. That's what they called them on our bedrooms when you wanted to prove you were who you claimed, when you shared intimate photos of yourself to illustrate your point. I'd taken them in the bathroom mirror, late at night, wearing nothing, angling the phone to show my body, the body my husband hadn't touched in over a year. I'd blurred my face. I'd been careful, but apparently not careful enough. I don't know what you're talking about, I whispered. Jake smiled, that damn dimple showing again. It's okay, I won't tell, I just wanted to say, I understand, and I'm here if you need someone who really sees you. He handed me his phone. On the screen, my own post. The one where I'd written about feeling invisible, about wondering if I was still desirable, about the fantasy of a man wanting me without me having to ask. The timestamp was 3 weeks ago. 347 people had upvoted it. 23 had commented. And one, apparently, had recognized the background in my blurred photos, the distinctive tile pattern of my bathroom, visible in the corner of a picture I'd posted on Facebook months ago of my kids' bath toys. I took his number because I didn't know what else to do. I told myself it was damage control. I'd delete it later. I'd block him. I'd pretend this night never happened. But when I got home at midnight, Mark wasn't on the couch. He was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of him. He'd found the forum. Not because he was snooping, he said, his voice so quiet I barely heard it over the ringing in my ears. He'd found it because he'd been posting too. Different username. Same forum. His posts were about a wife who'd changed after children, who didn't understand his stress, who made him feel like a paycheck and a sperm donor and nothing more. We sat in the kitchen until 3 a.m, reading each other's anonymous confessions like love letters we'd never had the courage to write in our actual names. He knew about my posts from 3 weeks ago. He'd seen the verification photos. He'd known about every detail I'd shared, every complaint, every moment of raw vulnerability I'd offered up to strangers for points and comments, and the false intimacy of upvotes. The next morning, Mark moved into the guest room. He didn't touch me. He didn't yell, he just stopped trying, stopped pretending, stopped everything. He told the kids Daddy was just having trouble sleeping. He told his mother he was fighting a cold. He told his sister, my best friend Sarah, that we'd had a fight about money, which was a lie so mundane it could have been true. I deleted the forum posts. I blocked Jake's number. I threw myself into a performance of perfect wife and mother so convincing I almost believed it myself. I volunteered for the PTA bake sale. I organized playdates. I made Mark's favorite lasagna, the one with the homemade noodles that took 3 hours. I waited for him to notice, to see me again, to remember why we'd built this life together. 3 weeks passed. Sarah stopped texting. My mother called, her voice careful. Mark told me you're going through a rough patch. Do you want to talk about it? I said no. I said we were fine. I said marriage was hard, but we were working on it. The lie tasted like metal. Then the package arrived. Plain brown envelope, no return address. Inside, a flash drive and a printed note. Thought you should see what your husband's been doing with his free time. I didn't recognize the handwriting. I almost threw it away. But something, curiosity, masochism, the same impulse that made me post those photos, made me plug it into my laptop. The first file was a video. Timestamped from a private investigator's camera, positioned across from a coffee shop downtown. Mark sitting at a table with a woman I didn't recognize. Younger, blonde, wearing a pencil skirt that showed too much leg. They were leaning close, heads bent together. The pie had helpfully zoomed in. Their hands were touching on the table, fingers intertwined. The second file was a document, a timeline, Mark's activities for the past 2 months. The late nights at the office had been visits to a therapist who specialized in sexual dysfunction. The work conferences were actually support groups for partners of people with pornography addiction. The gym sessions were appointments with a divorce attorney. The third file was audio, Mark's voice, recorded from what must have been his car. I know about the posts, Rebecca. I know about the photos. I know you met someone from the forum, and I know you're planning to leave me. So I'm going to say this now, while I still have the courage. I'm done, not just with you, with all of it, with sex, with intimacy, with trying to be something I'm not. I'm done. I called Sarah. She answered on the third ring, her voice cold. I told you not to hurt him, she said. I told you when you started posting those things that it would end badly, but you didn't listen, you never listen. What are you talking about? My voice cracked. The forum, Rebecca, I moderate that forum. I've known your username for months. I watched you share intimate details about my cousin. I watched you post pictures. I watched you plan your exit. And when you kissed that man, I had to tell Mark. He deserved to know the truth. The truth. That word again. Everyone kept saying it like it was something solid, something you could hold. But my truth had so many sides, so many versions. The truth was I was lonely. The truth was Mark was too. The truth was we'd both been performing marriage while living separate lives. The truth was I'd documented his inadequacies for internet points. The truth was he'd been documenting my betrayal for legal purposes. I drove to Mark's office. I didn't call ahead. I waited in the parking garage until I saw him, walking with the blonde woman from the video. They weren't touching now. They stood a respectable distance apart. She handed him a folder. He nodded. She got into her car. Mark turned and saw me. She's my therapist, he said before I could speak. I fired her today. I told her I don't want to fix this. I don't want to fix us. I want to be done. You hired a private investigator, I said. It wasn't a question. I needed proof, he said, for the custody hearing. There wasn't going to be a custody hearing, I whispered. I was going to fight for us. He laughed, a sound so devoid of humor it hurt. Rebecca, you posted our private life on the internet. You shared photos. You met a man from a fetish forum. You think that's fighting for us. You think that's marriage. I was lonely, I said, the same defense, the same empty words. So was I, he said, but I didn't broadcast it. I didn't seek validation from strangers. I didn't turn our bedroom into content for upvotes. He walked away. I stood there in the parking garage, watching the man I'd married disappear into an elevator. My phone buzzed, a notification from Reddit. Someone had commented on my most recent post, the one I'd made this morning after I thought Mark had left for work, the one where I wrote about feeling numb, about wondering if love was just something we told ourselves to survive the loneliness. The comment simply said, "Your husband knows. He's posting about you too." I found Mark's profile. It wasn't hard. I'd recognize his writing anywhere, even behind an anonymous username. His posts were about a wife who'd become a stranger, who documented her disgust with his body, who sought attention elsewhere, who made him feel like less of a man with every word she typed. His most recent post was from last night. She thinks I don't know about the forum. She thinks I don't know about the man she met, but I know everything. And I've decided, I'm done with sex forever, not because I don't desire it, but because I don't desire her, not anymore. Not after seeing how she sees me. I scrolled through his comment history, 6 months of posts. 6 months of pain I hadn't noticed because I was too busy documenting my own. He'd written about the night I'd posted the verification photos. He'd written about finding my username. He'd written about hearing the pie, about the moment he saw the video of me with Jake, about the way something inside him broke and decided there was no coming back from this. I posted one final time. My own username. No anonymity. I wrote the truth, not the performative truth I'd been telling myself, the real one. I'd wanted to be seen so badly that I'd stopped seeing him. I'd wanted connection so desperately that I'd severed the one I had. I turned our most intimate failures into public spectacle and called it therapy. The post got 3 comments before I deleted my account. The first called me a narcissist. The second said I deserved everything I got. The third was from Sarah. Mark had his own account. He posted about your postpartum depression. He posted about feeling like you died and been replaced by a mother who didn't want him anymore. He posted about wondering if he should just accept a life without sex, without love, without you. You both did this. You both broke this, but only one of you is taking responsibility. I moved out 2 days later. Mark didn't fight me on custody. He gave me the townhouse. He gave me the car. He gave me everything except the truth about his own loneliness, which he packaged up and took with him like the only possession he had left. My sister finally called. Mom told me what happened, she said. I think you're both idiots. You had problems, so you turned them into performance art. You posted your marriage online and expected what exactly? A solution? A savior? I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I write this now from a studio apartment. The kids are with Mark this week. He has a new girlfriend. I saw them at the grocery store last month. She touches his arm when she laughs. He looks at her like she hung the moon. They haven't been to any forums. They haven't posted their problems. They're just living. I check the old forums sometimes through my browser history. Mark's posts are still there, archived, a digital graveyard of our failure. Mine are gone, deleted, but I can still see them when I close my eyes. The words I typed, thinking they were harmless. The photos I shared, thinking they were anonymous. The life I destroyed, thinking I was just trying to survive. The private investigator sent a final invoice. Mark had paid him in full. At the bottom, a handwritten note, sometimes the truth is just pain looking for a place to land. I hope you both find what you're looking for. I haven't. I don't know what I'm looking for anymore. I thought it was connection. I thought it was being seen. I thought it was the validation of strangers who understood. But maybe it was just the courage to admit that I'd stopped seeing Mark, stopped loving him, stopped trying, long before I ever typed my first anonymous confession. My mother called this morning. Mark's getting married, she said, to that therapist, the blonde. I said I was happy for him. I said I hoped he was happy. I said a lot of things that tasted like ash. She hesitated. Rebecca, he told me something. He said he only went to those forums because he saw your verification photo and didn't recognize his own wife. He said he hired the pie because he wanted to catch you having a full affair, not just, whatever that was, he wanted a reason to hate you. I gave him one, I said. You gave him many, she corrected. But so did he. The difference is he stopped posting. He stopped performing. He started living. When will you? I hung up. I wrote this instead. Because the truth is, I still scroll through forums sometimes, reading about other people's marriages, other people's failures, other people's loneliness. I still feel the pull to comment, to share, to say I understand. But I don't. I close the tab. I look at my reflection in the dark screen. I see myself. Finally, not as a wife, not as a mother, not as a username or a post or a verification photo. Just as a woman who mistook documentation for connection, performance for intimacy, and a stranger's attention for the love she'd stopped giving herself. The last thing Mark ever said to me, spoken through the closed door of the guest room, his voice muffled but clear, you wanted to be seen. I saw you, Rebecca. I saw everything. That's why I can't unsee it. That's why I'm done. I thought being seen would save me. I thought the truth would set me free. I thought a stranger's kiss would wake me up from the deadness. And it did, just not in the way I expected. It woke me up to the fact that I'd been documenting my own destruction in real time, posting it online for strangers to witness, and calling it connection. The worst part isn't that Mark is done with sex forever, or that he's marrying someone else, or that my children call her mom now. The worst part is that I understand why. I read my old posts sometimes, the ones I saved as screenshots before I deleted everything. I read them, and I see what he saw, a woman so desperate to be validated that she turned her most intimate failures into public entertainment. A woman who documented her husband's inadequacies like she was building a case for her own loneliness. A woman who mistook vulnerability for honesty and strangers for saviors. You can judge me now. Everyone else has. The difference is, this time I'm not posting it for upvotes. I'm just finishing the story I started when I typed my first confession into that empty text box, thinking I was anonymous, thinking I was safe, thinking I was just looking for answers. I found them. They just weren't the ones I wanted.